Ambar, actually, and I'm here with my co-host.
Even I was gonna do the peace sign, but then I was like, that don't really fit me. Like that's not my
No, you're not a
jam.
peace sign kind of guy.
Nah. And it feels like too like YouTube-ish. Like,
Are
hey
you like a
guys. No,
fist?
yeah, no, I don't do Black Power either. I support Black Power, but I don't do the Black Power fist. I don't know. I don't have no signature, no monikers.
I use my hands a lot when I talk. I feel like I don't really.
That's
It's like,
very
yeah,
much a Northeast thing. I don't know
yeah.
if
People, if
Southerners
you're
are
not
like
from the
that.
East Coast and people do that, you probably feel like somebody's trying to attack you or something. But
Yeah, like we mad aggressive. It's like, no, I'm just visual. This is how I'm expressing myself.
yes, yes, and that kind of ties into what we're going to be talking about today: Miss Independent and redefining when strength becomes a barrier. In this episode, we're going to be breaking down being strong to keep safe, or is it to keep people out?
Hmm.
Some of the topics that we're going to dive into are independence, how it started, survival and not a personality, the chaos of praising women for doing it all without asking if they're okay, and becoming armor instead of confidence. And if you have anything to add into that, always
That's
welcomed here.
that's a hefty list. Got a lot to get to.
Yes. Me personally, when I think of independence, like I feel like from a young age, I've seen it because it's like a lot of the women in my family, um, kind of took everybody, like, the
Mhm.
cousins. So like they all played a role in like making sure that everybody was good, fed, clothed, hand me downs and stuff like that. Like I come from a family of a lot of cousins, so it was like we all were kind of like forced. Like those were like my first friends, I would say. Like
Uh-huh.
your cousins are usually your first best friends. And usually for me, it was a lot of women around me. So I got to see firsthand on how Spanish women, I'm Dominican, if I didn't mention that already, they're very hands on and with teaching girls at least how to be domesticated. So it's like from a young age, I knew how to handle a household, cook, clean, manage damn near. My mother, after she divorced, her first marriage, she had to take on other jobs. So it was a lot of us siblings that come from a family of four. So, making sure that we all kind of were on task for the most part, but we had a lot of
Uh-huh.
independence as well. We had a lot of time to shenanigan here and there. But I feel like for the most part, having that freedom and independence, it molded me, and it also like, I did things trial and error. I would be like, damn, like if the ring cameras were popping back then, I probably wouldn't have got away with a lot of the stuff that I got away with. But that's one thing I'm grateful for, at least in my adolescence, that I got to actually be a kid and like if mom did pull up on me, it was like off the strength that she came home and didn't see us that we was there, doing what she left us to do or
Uh-huh.
whatever. But how
Uh-huh.
do you feel about that? How was your upbringing? Did you have a lot of independence?
When it comes to like my independence, I think one, I'm hyper independent. I think that's just an Aquarius thing in general. I don't know if we've ever mentioned our zodiac signs.
Yeah.
Birthday's coming up, so anybody seeing these clips, if they want to send something, like I'll send you the address.
We're gonna get a PO box. We don't want no
Yeah, yeah,
stalkers.
yeah, yeah. It's fine. I have concierge that you're not gonna get through. But
Period.
no, I think I'm hyper independent by nature, so I always like doing things on my own or just enjoying things the way I would like to digest them. But I definitely come from like that traditional like Haitian household. There is a level of overprotection of like we need to know where you at all times, or don't do this because you could end up doing that, or don't do this because this could lead to this. So it's like I feel like a part of me, or not even a part of me, I would say a large portion of like my adolescence, I was definitely like a shy and timid kid because of that overprotection of like, because as a kid, you used to like, especially being around growing up in a dominantly Caribbean immigrant neighborhood. You used to see like your friends just roaming around doing whatever they want. Not to say that their parents were unavailable or being bad parents, but they're kind of like, listen, you're a kid, you need to go out and explore and like enjoy your friends and do stuff like that. And so not having that uh from my parents' perspective of like if you going outside or you hanging out with somebody, we need to know who this person is. We need to meet their parents. And it's like I hang out with my friends, I never got to meet their parents. Like I'm just we just outside just living. So there's a part of being a shy and timid like kid and even like teenager that comes from like that overprotection. Independence overall, I just feel like that's always been I don't like answering to nobody. I don't like asking people for
Mm,
shit. I just kind of like do what I gotta do and then move on with my life. And so I was never the person to like, oh yeah, group project. It's like, no, I don't want to do the group project. I don't
no.
want to do nah. Let me do what I gotta do on my own so I can do it on my own time, on my own terms, and then keep it moving. But you know, that's not how the world works, unfortunately.
Yes, the world is about collaborations, and I feel like for the most part, when it came to like groups, I always tended to want to be the leader of the group and to be
Uh,
like the one who's kind of like project managing it all and stuff. Um,
Control issues.
yeah, I do have just a tad bit, you know.
See, you could have denied it, but you admitted to it, so that's fine.
And, independence, like, for me, I would say was definitely a survival kind of trait and not a personality trait. I feel like when kids probably, in hindsight would like in your example, see kids on their own, it's like, well, I had to kind of fend for myself or learn a lot of what I know through like hanging out with friends, maybe not the best of friends at the time, but I know for me, I gained a lot of street smarts.
Mhm.
So it was like I understood certain things that other kids didn't. So it kind of put me in a different position too. And I got held back one year when I was in second grade. So I was like the older kid always
Uh,
in the classroom setting moving forward from that. And so I just always felt like I knew a little bit more. And there was like a gifted and talented program that I was in like my elementary school era or whatever. And so like I really didn't want to be a part of that either. Like I kind of
mhm.
like rebelled and like I don't want to do this. Like I want to be with like the regular kids. Like why do I have to be in the gifted and talented? And it's like I kind of rebelled a little bit there and like made friends with other people that kind of were the opposite end. I felt like that's where I wanted to be at the time. So it was a lot of trial and error, and now I'm like, "Damn, like, I wish I would've listened to my parents more or hung out with the kids that I should have been hanging out with instead of going out on my way trying to be independent and, like, learning all these things from the outside world versus just, like, following the script or whatever."
I mean, yeah, I could see that, but I could also see like your path is your path. You made the
Yeah.
choices that you made for whatever reason, whether, you're gonna say it's God, it's the universe, or whatever. I think I don't know. I don't necessarily look back on my life and my youth and think about the decisions that I made. I feel like,
No?
nah, not really. I feel like I'm more concerned about the decisions I make today versus things that are already in the past. Like I don't look
Mhm.
back that often, like if at all. Maybe as like a going down memory lane, but nothing in terms of like, oh, had I made this choice instead, like who knows where I would have been. But it's like
Mm.
doing all right.
Yeah, right? I think
Doing
that's the
okay.
overthinker in me that I feel like for the most part, when I do think back, and it's also because not that I like to, but I do have a lot of people that I grew up with that I have on social media. So it always brings back memories like, oh my God, like I remember we used to have this connection and now we're moms. And, it's nice to see, in my opinion, people that I've grown up with, starting families, having these beautiful unions and looking at their milestones and being like, wow, like that's dope. Hopefully maybe there'll be a reconnection there. If not, that's fine. It could just be a social media thing. I'm not crazy on linking up with people from the past, but it is nice to see. And I feel like for the most part, since we brought up signs, I'm a Pisces and I feel like we do a lot of rumination. So like we have a lot of escapism. So a lot of it has to do, I feel like personally, with just being that and like the fairy tale, the rose colored glasses and things of that nature. Like definitely I fit that shoe a little bit when it comes to that.
I'm laughing for, well, 2 things. I was shaking my head at first because I'm not that way. So it's like there are definitely people from my past that I still have on social media, but I feel like at every juncture, well, I'm a little bit older than you, so it's like I've been on social media since it really started. But I feel like I was on my way out of schooling in general once social media really became a thing. But I feel like after high school, I cut off most of the people that from high school. It was like, it's time to grow up. I don't need to have these sorts of connections. There's obviously people I still connect with, but it's still not the same in terms of like, back then. But then I was laughing about the whole Pisces thing because I was having a conversation with somebody today because I had a conversation with my mom and she was trying to convince me about something specific that I can't discuss. But I was kind of like trying to tell her, I was like, you're really hung up on some shit that you can't change. Like, just let it go. Yes, the vision and the ideal thing that you want would be great, but it's not going to fucking happen.
Mm.
So, you bringing this up to me while I'm like in the middle of doing something really important is really like, is really counterproductive. And like, especially at your age, you should be more focused on like your health and, enjoying your retirement years versus this familial thing that is never going to change. Like, I know when I already do not give a fuck. I'm very selective with the fucks that I give. So I can only imagine once I reach that age
Mm,
that I'm really not gonna care about too much because it's like,
yeah.
what am I heavily investing my energy into that's like not gonna be here that much longer for me to be concerned about it. But,
Mhm.
to each its own. We all
That's why
have feelings and emotions.
I like to hang around air signs and earth signs because y'all are really like cutthroat when it comes to that. So like y'all don't
Nah,
really
well,
have time.
earth signs, I believe a Taurus is an earth sign. Can't
You dare.
can't deal with Taurus people. I can't. Well,
We have
let me
something
not
in
say that.
common there.
I can tolerate and accept most people. I don't really have
Mm.
beefs. I just don't align with the overly emotional
You think they're emotional?
one. In my experience, yes.
Hmm.
There's a couple that people that come to mind, but from my experience, they're the type of individual, one small thing happens and like their day is ruined and like they can't let it go.
Hmm.
And I
Must be
absolutely
women because I feel like the men aren't like that at all.
I don't associate with the male species, so you're
Right.
you're right about that. Yeah, and stuff like that bothers me because it's like I don't operate that way. It's kind of like, all right, this was
Mm. You
unfortunate,
had
or
a
this
bad
is
moment, not a bad day.
exactly, and it's like you got to let go. Like let's move on. Let's move on.
So the chaos of praising women for doing it all without asking if they're okay. I feel like that is a common thing. And it doesn't have to be gender specific. I feel
Uh-huh.
like even as women, sometimes we don't stop and sit with our homegirls and be like, are you okay? Like, like we talk about other things. We discuss, the mundane or the basic, but I feel like feelings not too much, especially because like everybody is so, fixated on not everybody, but the topic of like decentering men and like, wanting to be at a certain point in their life after they reach a certain age. It becomes more of like they don't want to feel like they're delayed, A lot of people our age are having kids and marrying, so it's like they probably feel like they don't really have a lot to talk about. So they do dive into work and, things that they're passionate about. And in the process, there's not a lot of, check-ins. I feel like I talk more with my male friends than I do my girlfriends, to be honest.
Yeah, you got to fix that. I would say, I think yes. I think in general we all need to do a better job at communicating with our friends and really checking in the way we need to check in. I think what really makes it difficult is obviously we all live under the thumb of capitalism. And so it feels like a rat race for all of us in trying to navigate our professional careers, navigate our lifestyles. Then many of us have kids. So that's another layer that becomes a hurdle. And so people kind of live like a hamster on the wheel and just navigating life in a way that isn't necessarily conducive to their mental, spiritual, and sometimes their physical health. And so, and then there's also the idea of like, you don't like to like trauma dump. Like, I'm not the type of person like, when I was working, I was not the type of person to really talk about work with people unless you really specifically ask me. And even then,
Mm.
I'm probably being more vague of like, yeah, work is trash. It is what it is. Like, I don't like trauma dumping. And on the lowest of keys, I don't like when people trauma dump on me. But I think we do collectively need to do better with like checking in, especially with the rise of suicides and just people just abusing things, whether it's alcohol, weed, sex, self abuse. Like, I think we do need to do a better job as a community checking in. But also, it is technically not our fault because, again, capitalism is the root of it. But also, a lot of it does come from our backgrounds, especially if
Mm.
you're talking about people of Caribbean immigrant heritage. Like, you're taught, like, you have nothing to complain about. I vividly remember that as a kid, of like, you have nothing to complain about. You just go to school. And it's like, okay, school could still be tough. But like, that
Or
sort
what
of
happens stays in the house.
right, but
That was
even
something I heard.
those sorts of things still stick with you, and so, you start to get to a point as an adult where it's like, I don't need to express anything because this is what I'm supposed to deal with, and, like, I'm supposed to continue on and
Mhm.
continue with, dealing with the pressures of society and not being able to express myself in the way that I need to express myself. It's a
Mm.
multi-layered sort of situation/issue, but I think, yeah, everybody gotta do a better job at
And I feel like
communicating.
we spoke about last episode how because we're on social media, maybe we do have the people that we would communicate with over the phone. They feel as though like, oh well, I see their stories all day, or I sent them reels, so that's enough communication. And it's like it's really
Yeah,
not.
that's not a real check-in. Yeah, you don't ask me how I'm doing. I mean, I don't have kids, but I try to remember to ask people about their kids. I was about to say something rude. I try to ask people about their kids. If I'm familiar with any family members, I try to ask, and that was also something I did this year when the new year started. There were certain people that reached out to me, and I was like, "Yeah, I got to do a better job at like checking in."
Mm,
Even though we all had like a tough 2025, still,
yeah.
it only takes a few seconds to just send, your thoughts or concerns to somebody, and that may make their day. So I think we all could do a better job at.
I'm big on asking people how they're doing and stuff. And I feel like that gives a lot of people the opportunity to trauma dump, especially because when you bring that motherly, nurturing kind of energy, I feel like people just automatic. I could just see somebody at the local grocery store and be like, hey, like that's a cute, I like your hat. Oh, I got this from my great great. And then they start telling me, and I'm just like, damn, now I gotta sit through this. But I love it, but then obviously it's like it could be a lot.
Yeah, yeah. My only thing, this is just me. This is just me and my thoughts of my own. I'm fine with people sharing, but once it becomes like a repetitive issue, then it's
Mm,
like, all right, I don't care about this anymore because you clearly are not doing anything to solve the problem. So
mhm.
I can't be invested because clearly it don't bother you enough because you still in a said situation and you ain't tell me about what you did to change it. So I've tapped
I'm
out.
big on asking people, like, do you have the space to listen to something? Like, I want to share this, or only if you're open to listening, because like you said, like not everybody likes to hear the bullshit, and everybody has their days where they just kind of don't want to tap into that energy, and sometimes that
Right.
shit can drain you. So
Right.
take precautions for sure.
This is true.
So moving on to the idea of the week, we kind of tapped into it a little bit, unlearning hyper independence without losing self-respect. So how would you define hyper independence or, you know,
Hyper independence is like no matter what the situation is. I mean, this is not a textbook definition. I should probably look that up. But I feel like hyper independence is essentially when someone, regardless of what the situation is, they do not reach out for help in any sort
Mm,
of regard, even if they know there are people that are willing to help them and they just rather figure it out on their own. I am definitely a byproduct of hyper independence. Desperately hate asking and refusing help from people. Like there's been moments where like I've been down bad many moons ago, don't know possibly where I could be living in some sort of
mm,
capacity or no food in the fridge. And I would not call my parents. I would not call a friend, ask to borrow money or nothing like that. It's like, I don't know. There's just something in me of like, okay, I put myself in this position. This is just temporary. It's not going to be my forever. I'm going to figure something out. But
mm.
there's nothing wrong with asking for help, like,
You're
you
right.
know, which is funny that I'm so hyper independent because depending on who you are, if you reach out for help, like I'll help you. Like even there's been plenty of instances where I've given my last to somebody because I know there's something on the other side of whatever it is that I'm dealing with coming soon. So it's like, okay, I'll be fine without having no cash for a few days because I know I'm about to get paid, but I know
Uh-huh.
you is going to be a bit much longer. So I'll give you my last or whatever. But
Mm,
yeah, I don't know where I developed that sort of like hyper independence. And I don't know if I've necessarily gotten better with it. I think it's a very interesting dynamic and it may come from patriarchy of like being a hyper independent man and, receiving help from other people because
mm.
the expectations of a man are you supposed to figure it out no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know. Oh, yeah, I was supposed to be looking up the
Well, I
textbook
looked it up
definition.
for
Oh, my
us.
bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hyper-independence is an extreme form of self-reliance where an individual compulsively avoids relying on others for support or assistance, even when needed. So you did define it, I think, correctly.
I read a book or two.
It's often a psychological defense mechanism or a trauma response, typically stemming from past experience of neglect, abandonment, or betrayal. And I can relate to that because I feel like the reason why I'm hyper independent is mostly because of necessity and not because I want to be. Being a single parent, a lot of the responsibility falls under the parent who has the guardianship. So not a lot of people have well, I can't really rely on a lot of people. One, because I'm not just gonna, trust anybody with my kid. There's too many things that happen, under the care of others. So I rather and that is still a control thing, but I rather just pay for the extra care time at my preferred care, taker than to rely on anybody else who, anything could happen, driving to A and B or, they stop at a store, God forbid some shit happens at the store. Like I'm always thinking like about the worst case scenario when it comes to like my child. And then the fear of depending on anybody. So like I developed the characteristic of like the hustle. Like I need to make money. I need to learn traits so that I can provide because I'm not going to rely on anybody else. Like I don't have a man.
Just
I
say
don't.
just say what you were gonna say. I ain't relying on no man. Just say it.
Right, right. I don't have a man, and like times are hard. Not a lot of the men don't want to work like as
The
they want to go as hard as they need to. I feel like.
Yes, but I will say, um it is counterproductive for well, one, we all need to be better people and then ideal partners. But especially in today's society, it is extremely counterproductive to be a single individual. If you are able to find somebody and you're on the same page and y'all could find some sort of happy ground where y'all could live together, it alleviates so much pressure financially, which would then trickle down to mentally, possibly physically as well. So it's like the hyper independence is kind of expected, especially with the cost of living right now. If you're in the New York, New Jersey area, just everywhere in the country, honestly. But like, if you're able to find somebody and just y'all on the same page and y'all could find a nice little spot together and figure it out, like it's to y'all benefit. Which
Mhm.
not to take the conversation elsewhere, but it's like when you see these sorts of the small population of women who want the man who is going to be their financial provider in every capacity. It's they're entitled to have those thoughts and those opinions, but it's also kind of like, bro, you don't have to. Like, you can still have a regular 9 to 5. Find someone, hopefully find someone who you're on the same page with. Y'all could live together and like split expenses, or like you take care of one set of things, or he takes care of another set of things, and you can still do whatever it is that you have to do, whether it's going back to school, saving money for something else, or whatever. But there's this, like, I don't want to call it weird, but there's this idea of like, my money is my money and his money is my money, which is,
Mm,
people are entitled to, their own opinion, but it is kind of crazy because, not to play double standards, but if a man was to try to operate like that, he'd be looked at as sassy, or he's a bum, or whatever
mm,
it is that you want to sort of believe.
mhm,
Yeah, the independent thing, it's a harsh reality, and it is very tiring at times. So
mhm,
for those that are fortunate enough to actually like live with their partner, it reminds me of this story one of my homegirls said. She moved to DC like maybe a couple years ago, and she had like a married friend. And so he pulls up to her house and he's like, "Oh, you living the life. Like, you ain't got to answer to nobody. Like, you got your own space or whatever." And she's like, "Yo, shut up. You married, you got your wife. Like, y'all could split expense. Even if it's not splitting expenses, you could split task and duties." Like, there's been so
right.
many times that I've like gone to the gym, or even when I was working, finished working or doing something that's like, "Oh shit, I have to cook now." And it's like, here's another task for me that I have to do on my own, or I got to take out the garbage, or I have to do this, or I have to replace that. And it's like, all that stuff is tiring. So the
Mhm,
independent stuff is like, it's good to have those skills, but also like, there are moments where it's not the glory that it
right.
may seem, which is why we're all like joking about the idea of like, our parents brought us here without our consent. Cause it's like, now I'm out here paying all these damn bills, doing all these damn responsibilities, and it's outside of my control. If you was gonna have me, at least be rich. How dare you have
No
me?
trust fund, no savings account, no Roth.
I don't want to quote him, but that famous singer, I should say, and that video that had gone viral from his interview a few years ago is like, "I'm fighting for my life, fighting for my life out here." Like, chill.
And then it's just when we become a grown adults that it becomes the fucking worst type of economic, climate to be an adult in, you know?
Yes,
As if we already didn't have enough growing up, traumatic things happen to us, as far as like 9/11,
yeah. We're
their
living.
things.
This is our second financial crisis,
Exactly.
and it's all happened while we've been in our adult ages.
And then it's like, damn, if I knew it was gonna get like this, I would have started saving in kindergarten. I would have saved all them little $10 I got from my
Listen,
aunties and all that.
I don't know.
I was too
Um,
busy buying stuff at the corner store and living my life.
all them damn Spice Girls lollipops could have been spent on something way more important.
I'm telling you, it's crazy. And then it's like, going back to what you were saying about how I always tell my friends, like, obviously relationships aren't perfect. A lot of my friends are in relationships, they're married or they've been, with their partner for a long time, engaged. And I always say, like, whatever it is, try to make it work, please, because there is not a lot out there and, it's just I strongly, advise going to couples therapy or something like that. It makes it some days it does. It's nice to, come home and, for the record too, I've never had that experience where I've lived with a man, so I don't even know how that feels like.
Uh-huh.
So for me, it would be definitely something different. The only man I've ever lived with was my father and
Oh,
my brother.
I thought you was about to say God.
And him too, praise God. But other
Yeah,
than that, it would definitely be like a shock, a culture shock a little bit for me.
yeah. It reminds me of like this tweet. I think Steph Curry's parents had like a divorce years ago,
Mm.
and there was this guy. He went viral for these tweets. He's like, "Bruh, you better go fix your marriage. Ain't nothing out here." They out here pegging men. Like, ain't nothing out here for you. There's nothing out
Yo,
here. He
for
was just like
real.
listing all the crazy things that are like normalized in society now. I mean, I don't know if I agree or disagree. I think I'm very much someone of like, yes, there's things that could be worked on, but there are also things where it's like, if it's a non-negotiable, it's a non-negotiable. I'm not
Yeah.
sticking with it. I don't care how long we've been locked in. I don't care what we've done for one another. My peace means more to me than a union. Um, at the end of the day, like you said, I think, yeah, if you're gonna go to couples therapy, go to couples therapy. Maybe sometimes it's not even the couples. A lot of times, if you watch like a couples therapy, a lot of times it's just a single individual that needs some. They need their own trauma to be healed. That need some level of healing, separate from their partner. Their partner isn't necessarily a culprit there. But yeah, like I also personally never had that experience of living with someone. I've had, people around for extended period of time, but never. I mean, it's nice. There are some perks. There are definitely some perks, but yeah, I don't know. I
My first
feel
roommate was my kid. That was my first roommate.
love that for you. I was about to say something way left, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just shut up. What's next?
What's next? Okay, how independence can quietly block intimacy, softness, and receiving. I say for myself, because I'm independent and because I have so many things that I have to like really consider and worry about, being soft is the last thing on my list. I'm soft in ways, yes, but I always find myself like being a little more tough or just like knowing a little more. So I'm not really as like submissive, because it's just like I'm up on game a little bit. So I'm just like I'm always side eyeing something or always like thinking about what's really happening here. That's a little toxic trait, I guess you could say, but definitely that's
Y'all don't
something
want
that
peace,
I have
man.
to work on for sure.
Y'all people don't want peace. Y'all don't want peace.
But it's silent though. I'm not the type to like start an argument. I'll definitely like, clock it for myself, but I probably won't, it depends on the level of the situation.
I mean, maybe it don't apply to you. I would just say in my experience, I feel like a lot of people are scared of the idea of loving fully or being vulnerable. And so
Mm,
that's where they get that sort of tough exterior and you know, not wanting to showcase themselves. And it's like you're depriving yourself and you're depriving the other person. And it's like that's no way to live. Why would you want a reluctant partnership? That might be slightly off topic to an extent. But I would say I don't know if men I'm trying to think. I don't know if men suffer in that same way of their independence and how it may impact dating and relationships. I would say for myself, I don't see it as a negative. I see it more so of like it helps me gauge whether I want to entertain somebody or not because it's like I cook for myself, do everything that I need to do for myself. So it's like other than companionship, it's going to sound crazy, but other
mhm,
than companionship, women can't really provide me nothing that I can't provide myself, obviously
mhm,
outside of intimacy or whatever, and companionship, like I mentioned. So it's like, again, it's gonna sound crazy. It's like, what are you bringing to the table? Like literally, what are you bringing to the table? I pay my own bills. I'm able to feed myself. I'm able to do the things that I need to do. So it's like, what is it that you're bringing to the table because I'm already an independent person? So it's like, but it kind of goes back to our conversation last week of like, or I don't even know if it was last week, but the idea of like, what is and isn't something I would do for my partner. So it's like, if I'm already independent and you think you could just go be around me and you don't do shit, then it's like,
mm,
what is the reason for me having you around outside of the
mhm,
companionship? Like I have friends. I don't need to hang out with you. Like I have friends. So I think that level of independence helps me sort of like filter through people of like, okay, is this person actually someone who's selfless or is this person that's just here because they think they could gain X, Y, and Z from me?
mm,
But I do also think in a weird way, and I don't know if this is still valid, and I don't know if this is still valid, but I remember a former friend of mine many years ago said that I come off as a taken person. And that's
mm,
because it's like you're well groomed, you know how to dress well, you know how to do all these things with that allegedly, typically, a lot of men don't necessarily check the box off of on their
Mhm.
own. They usually have to get a partner that teaches them these things of like, here's how you do your skincare routine. This is, these sorts of clothes are more flattering for you and things of that nature.
Mm.
And so, because I already do all those things on my own, a lot of times, or at least she's believed that women probably would never approach me or ever say anything to me because they would assume that I'm already partnered, especially since I'm not the type that, I'll be around a gang. If you see me outside, I'm usually solo dolo,
Mm.
or at most one person is with me. So that also kind of like reinforces the idea of like, okay, he's always by himself. So that means, he ain't trying to draw attention to himself. So I think that might be a way my independence kind of like backfires on me, but
Yeah.
I don't know
I
if
feel like
that's
you also have a lot of female friends,
whoa,
so
whoa,
that could
whoa,
also
whoa,
be a
whoa.
thing
Why why am I being put on the stand? Why am I being put on the stand? They are
because you
wonderful individuals.
yeah, I mean, women are better to be around, right? As a man, like I would, if I was a man, I would want to have women friends because it just you bounce, you get your creative juices
I'm just here
flowing.
for the
Women are more
vibes.
honest,
I'm just here for the vibes. I'm just here for the vibes, like,
and then vice versa. I feel like that's why a lot of sometimes women, have male friends because it's like being around women can get a little, depending on the groups, sometimes it can get a little weird, a little messy, a little chaotic.
I'm not agreeing, but I'm also not disagreeing.
And that goes to my next segment, which is me ranting for a little bit. I feel as though that when women do end up letting their guard down and they're soft and they're, wanting to submit a little bit or showing interest, that's when guys flip the script a little bit. They're not as attentive or they're not as caring. They don't want to engage how they were just engaging. That it's like the chase isn't there anymore. So it's like now it's like then we just breadcrumb. And that for me, I don't really like that. It's like what happens? Like what disconnects there? Can you relate to this? Have you seen this? Or has anybody mentioned this before?
Yeah, I think plenty of times you hear these sorts of stories, especially as someone who has a lot of women friends. You hear these stories of like men being like picture perfect, and then it isn't until they gain some sort of access, or typically it's usually when they gain access to the body, that's when they start to, show their true colors. I think what it is like there's this idea of like dating is a game. And I think because of that, well, my hot take is I think all men are sociopaths. So I think there is a what is it, chemical imbalance in your
Mm,
brain to see someone who's being honest about who they are, how they operate, having no intention to align with said belief system or align with their desires, but showcase that just to see how far it's going to take you, and then basically abort mission and just, show that you're not really that invested in some person. Like, I think there's something wrong in your head if you've ever operated like that. I personally have never done that. Like, I'm very straightforward off the bat of like what it is that I'm seeking at that time,
mm,
whatever it is, because I would prefer to actually engage with people that are on the same page. If you're telling me you only want to be physical and that's not the time that I'm on, like I'm not going to just accept that because I obviously don't want more and vice versa. Like, so I think it's weird when
right.
men kind of operate in that sort of way of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do these things because it's gonna get her to, open up more, invite me to her crib, maybe sleep with her, like, do this, do that. And then once I have it, it's kind of like, all right, now I'm comfortable. I got my prize.
That's so predatorial. Like, for me, it's like, what, like, why can't there be some kind of repercussion for that? We need to do something, some rehabilitation. I don't know. There needs to be some form of clocking it in a legality way, because it's traumatic. It's like, and it's not fair because people do take that vulnerability as a weakness and then they use it to their advantage. And I feel like a lot of not to say men are smart enough to even manipulate. But some men do know how to manipulate and, gauge the situation and
Well, you don't even necessarily have to be that smart. Emotions cloud everything. So
mm,
once someone is catering to you in a certain way, emotionally, you're going to be invested because this is what you seek, this is what you desire. So once that plays a factor, like your sense of rationale is just out the window because we've all done
mhm,
shit because of our emotions. Like we've all entertained people that we probably shouldn't. We've all, stayed a little bit longer than we should because of our emotions. So it's very easy to get caught up. And like the whole manipulation thing is really not that complex because if
mm,
you're saying, I want A, B, and C, said person comes along and gives me A, B, and C, then it's like, okay, why am I holding me back from anything because this is what I asked for and I'm getting it. And then
mm,
once A, B, and C is no longer present, it's like, what the fuck? Like what is happening? What did I do? What did they do?
right.
Like what changed? And so that's where, it becomes very complex and like extremely damaging because you become invested in said person and like now they just treating you like an afterthought. So yeah, it's very weird because again, why don't you seek the people that are actually seeking the same things that you want? Like, which that's why the whole thing is sociopath behavior because this person doesn't want that, but you want to trick them to believe that you want the same thing because you want what you want out of them specifically, even though they don't align, which I find to be very weird. Like, yeah, it's very weird. Like you said, it's very predatory. I would take
Right.
it to another level, but I don't want to use that word on here. So we could move on. We could move on.
Is there anything you would like to rant about? Is there anything fresh on your mind?
Oh, anything I would like to rant about at
This
this
is your
time?
time.
I don't know. I feel like I've been really much at peace for now. It's still early in the year. I
True,
haven't come
true.
across anything that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way outside of, like news that has been really disturbing, but unfortunately that's unsurprising to our generation. But yeah, I haven't really necessarily seen anything that kind of like irked me. I guess if I want to rant, I truly hate capitalism on so
Mm,
many fronts. And I don't know if I ranted about this already. I may have, but I really hate capitalism. And everything is ruined so much so by capitalism. And so, as someone who's now back on the job market, I'm now being like force fed, the recruiter content on social media. And it's like, yeah, they may have like honest intentions to a certain extent, but then at the same time, they're also benefiting from the kind of traction that they're getting. And it's like you can't really tell who's doing this or who's doing that, who's doing this for honest reasons and who's doing this because they may get some form of compensation out of it. Because it's
mm,
like, oh, we know like LinkedIn and Indeed don't necessarily work the same way that they used to, but now they're, you could go to this website, you could go to that website, you go here, and it's like there's so many different options, but then it's like you don't hear nothing from any of these options. So it's like, was it legit? Was it not legit? And another, I guess, byproduct of this is this whole like everything's a fucking subscription, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of
literally.
it. Even like the job thing.
To get more leads, you need to have an account or like the
You
premium
need
package gives you the
Yes,
more.
and it all ties together because it's
Mhm,
like even if they're not charging you, you need to sign up for an account, which just means that they want your data, which just
mhm,
means that they're selling your data to other people, which just ties back into capitalism because the only reason why they're doing it is because of money. And it's like everything has become so money driven, not only from how we interact with one another and our expectations, but just like the whole system itself is so driven by money. That's why we see all of the corruption that we see in every level of government, of every industry, whether it's how the food is being manufactured or whatever. It's like I say a lot of things, but I say, money is, evil to a certain extent. Say, you know what? This is your platform. Let me not let me not go
no,
off.
say it, say it.
There's a lot of I also believe there's a lot of evil rooted in white people.
Mm,
There's a lot of things that just rooted it in white people and their existence and their history in the world,
mm,
not just this country, in the world. And a lot of those things overlap in terms of like capitalism, oppression, white people and how they operate and how they see the world for themselves. So, yeah, there's just a lot of evil in
mm.
certain pillars everywhere. And like, I'm just tired. Like, we
And it's so
not meant
funny
for this.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like a lot of people, especially black and brown people, they like to praise the white man, like white Jesus and like, oh, spirituality is demonic, right? But white people use spirituality too. Like it's been real
That's
clear
why that's
who's doing the black magic and who's not, and
even the idea of black magic is racist in itself. Because why is the
mhm,
magic considered black?
mhm.
Why does it
Yeah,
receive that title?
right, right. And why is it that because it is that title, it's a negative connotation towards it? It's like,
Right,
okay,
and it's only the magic that is specifically that comes from non-white people that is
right.
considered the black magic. That's why Sinners for me was, like, the best movie of the year
Mm,
because of that end where I forget the vampire's name, but he basically was telling Preacher Boy, like, because Preacher Boy was started praying when he thought he was about to die, and he was telling Preacher Boy, like, "Those are the same sermons that the white people who enslaved my people use." Like,
mm,
the you know,
right.
these pillars we think are so important or so, we hold to such a status, like, specific people can use them in negative ways, like and to
Mhm.
clear up my statement, money itself is not inherently evil, but how it's been used to oppress people is what creates the evil within it. Well, I don't know if white people are inherently evil. They might be. They just might be. They just
I
might be.
mean, I don't know if you guys crack open a history book, we weren't the ones
You
doing
don't even need a history book. Go outside.
or that too.
Just go outside. You don't need no history book.
Yeah, like black people are not shooting up schools, black people are not, mass murdering and all other kinds of shit. So I mean,
And it doesn't even have to be to that extent. Just look at any country, state, whatever, whenever, whether it's the current history or past history, you could trace some sort of root to some sort of Caucasian or white people, whether it's even the
mm,
conquistadors, the European settlers, like it all starts from there. It all
yeah.
starts from there, and then it just evolved and sprinkled down to what we see today and, the credit score and how money is
We're
distributed.
literally on a floating rock worried about credit scores and
Yeah. And then what is a dollar?
mhm.
It's something we're being told that has value, but, like, what is like, it's all made up.
It's
That's
all
basically what
energy. It really is.
it's all made up. Like, it's all, built up shit.
The wealthiest of people are drowning in debt, just, better at flipping and laundering for the most part. A lot of people know how to work the system and the loopholes and tax
And they don't
write-offs
have to work the system because the system was designed for them.
for them.
Yeah, the system was designed for them. So it's like that's why they continue to do the things that they do because it's like we don't see we've heard of well, I'm old enough to remember, Enron. What was that, 90? I don't remember that year. But Enron, what's the crypto dude that got locked up a couple years ago? I mean, technically,
I
Martha Stewart
remember
didn't
that.
do anything illegal. Yeah, like, there's so many people that get into financial issues, and you would think that would stop, but no, more people keep doing it because
No.
the system is designed for them to keep doing it, and they just pick and choose who they wanna, like, make an example.
Right.
For us, we're always made an example and no matter what it is. Yeah, that's my
That's your
rant for the
rant
week.
for the week.
Yeah, maybe next week it won't be about capitalism. Who knows?
I mean, it's only day 8, right, into the year, and I hope that things do start to change, even though there's been a lot already that's happened globally that is very, questionable on where we're headed.
I'm going to try to be positive, and I hope things
Yeah,
change too.
definitely. I'm gonna sprinkle some positivity too, just to kind of wrap up the conversation. Independence is a foundation, not a wall. Strength can coexist with vulnerability. You can be strong, but you can be soft. That you have to have a balance, and people have to be safe places to also provide
Great
that,
point.
and also not being easily convinced by people who may be manipulating the situation because they may be trying to receive something that you have, and
Mhm.
receiving doesn't make you weak, it makes you human.
Look at that. The more you I should have that banner. The more you know.
So what are your final thoughts about what we spoke about today.
I think independence is necessary unless you are someone who subscribes to the idea of like someone else being your financial provider. More power to you. But I think independence is necessary. People should have the skill. Interestingly enough, I've found that there are more women who, or at least I'm experiencing more women who either have zero interest in cooking or don't know how to cook at all, which I find to be very fascinating. But that's neither here nor there. But it kind of does fall into the idea of independence.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I think independence is necessary, but there's also nothing wrong with receiving help and asking for help from time to time, especially someone like myself who is a entrepreneur to a certain extent. Sometimes well, I'm always been self-reliant and like trying to figure things out on my own. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just don't have the skill set and you're just better off just hiring somebody or asking for help when need be. Because, as a website designer, I've seen a lot of shitty websites. Like, you guys need to stop. But yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with independence, but I think ideally we would all have some level of balance of like being independent, but then being able to get some support from time to time. And whether it's your partner, friends, family, there's nothing wrong with that. And, the idea of, like you said, people providing safe spaces so that people, specifically women, because men don't necessarily need to conform to any space, but particularly women can actually show up in the ways that they ideally want to show up and not have to, I'm starting to, this might be another rant. I am low key starting to get tired of the whole, like, I'm tired of living in my masculine sort of
Oh,
energy. I get
you're
it.
tired of hearing that?
I get it. But also, like, you have to do it. So, like, you have to pay your bills. You have to do these things. Like, until that happens, like,
I
sorry.
think for me, being in my masculine is having to build things and having to do the car maintenance and having to educate myself because there's freaking mechanics out there who like to take advantage of the fact that, you
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
knowledgeable on these things. Like it would be
That's
nice to have somebody to know or to be like, hey, like I need this done. Can you do it for me? Because, I don't necessarily need you to pay for it, but it would be nice to have somebody who I trust and can get some of those things done.
Yeah, and I say that loosely. Like I don't really am bothered by it, but I just see a surplus of it,
No,
and
yeah.
it's like I get that, but also like at the same time, if they're well, it's more so on men to be better, so that there are options. But it's like if there's no options, then yeah, like, if there's no options, then, kinda have to, like, suck it up to a certain extent, unfortunately, like, the same way you gotta suck up with anything else, and, I don't think a lot of times not to say that men need a space, but I don't think in certain instances that men are allowed a space where they could say some of the same things, where it's like, I wish I could have someone do X, Y, and Z, and then it's like you get beat over the head on social media for voicing what you're missing out on. It's a very interesting sort of thing when it comes to that. But like I completely understand because there's definitely moments where it's like, oh, I would like to have someone actually handle this really small miscellaneous task that I just don't have the time to handle right now. But when I see a overwhelming amount of people say the same thing, it's like, all right, well, what's going on here? What's going? Because they'll be the ones that be like, I'm tired of being in my masculine energy. But then there'll be the ones of like, if a guy says hello to me, I immediately ignore him, and it's like you don't even give yourself the opportunity to meet anybody. So what do you want? Like I know there's that therapist joke of like your partner's not gonna break it to your house to meet you. Like you have to like be open to receiving, something. So I don't know. I don't know. I think in general, just too much complaining on social media. Like everybody needs to be more problem solvers versus keep complaining. Like way too many voicing their opinions, which that's what social media is for. But it's a lot of Twitter fingers versus like putting some actual boots to ground and actually doing what needs to be done in order to like not have to complain about certain stuff. But that's just me, you know. I try not to complain. So yeah, did the peace sign.